All right, by now you should have already started your base form for your big head project, but just really quickly, I'm just going to make sure that I kind of go through this really quickly to figure out how you take your box. Mine's a little bit smaller, and remember we're sort of cutting down because you kind of want like a cube form that's going to fit over your head. So I'm going to cut that down, retape it, and then I'll show you a little bit on how to reinforce this, as the boxes may have gotten a little broken. All right, now that I have some of my little corner braces on here, and it's firmed that up quite a bit. Again, I glued them in place, and then I put my tape to hold it down. And of course, our tape is our lifesaver. It allows us to continue working, you know, even though the glue is not totally wet. But remember, don't forget to put glue in there as well. You can't just put the tape, got to put the glue in there. So I've got my cube or my rectangular prism. I want to make this rounder. Okay, so I'm going to do some different things to it to sort of make a curve across the top and curves outward this way. Okay, and to do it, I'm going to be using strips of cardboard that I've sort of already cut. And I'm going to be sort of curving those. Now, you'll want to use your thicker cardboard for this, especially like the thinner cardboard that you might have like from like cracker boxes and things. It's not going to be as long, although you could take two of these and attach them here. But the longer this is going to be, sort of a little bit more flimsy it is. But it does curve a little bit nicer than this one here. But again, this is just our sort of basic form. And after that, we're going to attach some pieces on. So I'm going to go ahead and attach one on here. And I'm going to make this a little shorter. And I'm going to attach that on there like so. All right, now that I have my base form and my supports, of course, in there, I've attached my strips around the outside, creating this curved form. So I'm getting closer to a rounded head. Now, there's a couple of things that I ran into, some problems. All right, when I did my supports, I put them sort of too close to the opening, so I wasn't able to get these pieces around to the corner. So when you do these, make sure they are closer, further in to the top of your head, because this is the top of my head. Okay, make sure that's the same thing. Also, you can come back in here and kind of curve these a little bit more. They'll curve a little bit better once we get some pieces of cardboard across there. And the best way to curve them, first off, is to pay attention to where you're cutting in your cardboard. So corrugated cardboard. So cardboard has these little ridges that are inside there. Okay, these little ziggy ridges. Okay, and on those ridges, the cardboard tends to want to bend really well on those ridges. It doesn't really want to go crossways. Its strength lies this way. So crossways, it's not really going to want to bend. Okay, so try your best when you have your cardboard to find the lines, the little corrugated lines going left to right, horizontally for your strips. Like I've cut mine and the ridges are across horizontally. So then what I did is I just sort of took it and I just kind of did this several times. So I've already got my kind of nice curve, because if I don't, what's going to happen is I'm going to bend it and it's going to just bend in those corrugated areas, and I'm going to come up with an angular form, and I don't want that. I want a curved form. So really sort of crease that along the inside. And then I created my tabs. And I attached the tabs on the inside and the outside of my box. And I've taped as well as glued in there. I put a bunch of glue in there, and I slapped some tape to hold it so that I can keep working on this in progress as I'm making this thing. Now, the problem with this here is that the top of the head is really flat. So I'm going to fix that out by taking some more of these strips, and I'm actually going to be attaching them across like this so I can get my rounded form. So now my head is sort of starting to take shape. I've got some curved pieces on the top here of the head. Okay, these got a little flattened out, but again, I can just kind of tweak it a little bit. Curve this one a little bit more to get that a little bit rounder. But I'm starting to get there. And this is going to be sort of kind of a squished head a little bit more and not quite as upright. So in order to do that, you'll want to have like these pieces here. I did a little bit on the short side from here to here. If you have a longer piece, the longer piece you get, the more of a curved space you're going to have on that top. The only problem is the longer pieces you have, the less sturdy they're going to be, and so I've had to come in and put these cross pieces. Now I could continue to put cross pieces kind of all along here, like this one here. It's a little bit of a big area, but now I'm going to start filling in these gaps with my cardboard. Okay, and the one thing I can just do is I can just take little rectangles and I can just, or little squares, and just start slapping them on over the top of this thing to sort of round out those forms, because I'm not going to be able to really attach any details of ears, eyes, nose, or anything else with these big gaping holes. And of course, if I started using the paper mache directly on it right now, of course what's going to happen is it's going to just fall in these holes and you're going to have this huge lumpy kind of mess of a head. So we've got to get rid of these holes next. Alright, so then I have a whole bunch of these little squares and rectangles of cardboard cut, and you kind of have to eyeball it and figure out, well, how big of a gap do I have that I have to like put this across. Okay, and again, being mindful and paying attention to where the corrugated is going. Again, if it's, you want the corrugated horizontally, that way you can curve it, so you can continue to curve, because if I put a straight piece over there, it's going to have an angled effect, and if I put another one here, it's going to be kind of a big blocky angle effect. So I'm trying to get rid of that. So I'm just going to, again, kind of curve my piece like I did before, so I can sort of fit it on over there. And I'll just stick some glue where I know this is going to hit. So I'm just going to put glue right here. And then I've got my tape handy. Hold it in place. And again, the tape is there to hold the area down that has the glue. I'm using my duct tape, but you have your masking tape, which hopefully should be strong enough to be able to do this. So my glue's getting off there. Okay. And then I'm just going to sort of keep going as I go all the way down. Now, like in here, I may need to make a little triangular piece to fit in there. And the same thing as here, but I'm basically just going to sort of keep kind of going over and over it to sort of flush this whole thing out, so I can actually start making my eyes, ears, nose, mouths, eyebrows, etc. All right, now my head is really sort of starting to take shape, or form rather, because we were talking about a three-dimensional piece and not a 2D flat shape. And so, you know, I'm curving these things around. I'm using the technique that I showed you earlier about on how to, you know, take this piece, make sure that the lines are horizontal, and then you just can kind of pinch it like this to create your curved pieces, and that works out pretty well. I mean, you could do this entire thing with bands kind of over and over again. I can put another band there. I probably will eventually. But there's some places I decided to use a bigger piece and to sort of really flesh that out a little bit quicker. Now, this one here worked really well because it was just kind of a piece that I needed just sort of like that. So I didn't have to worry about the corners quite so much. But over here, I've got two large pieces where I actually have these things curving another direction. Okay, so to do that, right now I'm going to fill this in right in here. Okay, so I've got my thinner cardboard from my good old trusty Wheat Thin box. You can still use the bigger cardboard, okay, but again, the thing is the same thing. I'm going to make sure that the writing and stuff is on the inside, because I don't want a big thing like that on the outside. Trying to keep everything, you know, I can take these stickers off and such, but trying to keep everything pretty much cardboard color, that tan color. So I'm going to start by just kind of curving it. So curve on the other side. Okay, and then I'm going to curve it this way too. And I'm going to go this way. So notice how that whole thing is really starting to curve up. And see how well this one really works. And I'm kind of really curving it. And I'm curving it this way. So I have this kind of nice little form that should fit pretty well right over the top of that area. And as I've been doing this, I've been sort of paying attention to where the cardboard touches and adding little chunks of glue there and then taping over the top of that there. Okay, so that's a pretty easy way to get this. Now, if you've got like little gaps like this, these aren't that big a deal. Okay, that one's really not that big a deal. So anything that's like this, little spaces like that, don't have to overlap every single thing. Okay, you can kind of put things next to it. If you can get a seam like this where it's next to it, that's sort of even better. A little bit of overlap is fine, because when we start doing our strips, when we start paper macheing, and it's a little bit like last year, because I know, well, not everybody. There was only one student that didn't quite get it last year. But we're going to be cutting our paper into triangles. Okay, this way they can get a curved form a lot better. Then, of course, if you have strips, just like these strips, kind of leave gaps and edges. So we don't want that. But notice this will cover this perfectly. Okay, so we don't have to worry about that. It'll cover this one here perfectly. So as long as your triangles are fairly large in size, that's probably like a perfect size. This one here might be a little bit smaller, so that's pretty good. This is a little on the small side, but these would be good for our details later on. But just covering the whole head, you know, when you start doing it, we're going to be doing with this. And when we start, you're just going to sort of really focus and worry on, once you have all the details on, kind of filling those holes first, because we don't want to fill cover the entire thing quite yet. We're just sort of filling the holes. And then we're going to be sort of paper macheing around the details, because you do have a limited amount of glue, and I want to make sure that you don't run out. So I'm going to sort of finish working on covering the rest of these, and then I'm going to show you next what the paper macheing process looks like.